Steht hier.
Einen wunderschönen guten Morgen.
Ich habe schon auf Start gedrückt, aber es kommt nichts.
Sehr, sehr schön in Deutschland. Nein, hallo, wir grüßen euch.
Ja, wir hatten ja ein paar technische Probleme.
Ich begrüße die Sanne und die Lea, die heute Morgen leider extrem hart Hotel-WLAN ist. Und sorry so ein bisschen für die kleine Verspätung, das hat so ein bisschen gedauert, aber jetzt sind wir hoffentlich einsatzbereit. Genau. Ja. Heute mal zu einer etwas ungewohnten Uhrzeit. Leider schon am frühen Morgen ist uns schwer gefallen zum Aufstehen, aber...
Bei mir wird noch nicht mal angezeigt, dass live ist.
Oje.
Ah, das ist ein Traum hier mit Leas WLAN. Das ist ja schlimmer als bei mir. Und sie ist weg. Egal, wir machen einfach weiter. Auf jeden Fall, heute ist ungewohnte Uhrzeit, mal früh am Morgen statt 19 Uhr am Abend. Das liegt einfach daran, dass wir die beiden Autoren des Buchs, um welches heute gehen soll, nämlich Illuminae, dieser wunderschöne Schinken hier. Wir haben nämlich die beiden Gäste, Jay Kristoff und Amie Kaufman, zu Gast natürlich. Und die werden sich ungefähr um 9 Uhr dazuschalten. Und da habt ihr dann natürlich auch die Chance, eure Fragen verlost werden an die beiden Autoren. Natürlich läuft die Show dann ungefähr 9 Uhr auf Englisch, da die beiden halt, soweit ich zumindest weiß, kein Deutsch sprechen. Aber das ist auch alles noch. Und das ist ein Traum heute Morgen hier mit Lea. Egal, auf jeden Fall wollen wir bis 9 Uhr ungefähr noch kurz über das Buch reden und bis dahin könnt ihr natürlich schon munter eure Fragen loswerden. Und worum soll es dann letztendlich gehen? Natürlich ein Buchtalk, so ein bisschen Q&A mit den beiden Autoren. Und zudem haben wir noch die Möglichkeit, dank des TV-Verlags ein Exemplar von Illuminae, also dieses schöne Buch hier, unter allen, die eine Frage quasi loswerden, zu verlosen. Also haut munter in den Live-Chat, der ist neben dem Video auf YouTube direkt. Falls ihr über Facebook oder so zuguckt, solltet ihr auf YouTube direkt gehen. Und genau, also einfach haut eure Fragen raus. Wir werden probieren, die alle an die Autoren loszuwerden und dann kann es, denke ich, losgehen. Habe ich was vergessen, ihr beiden?
Ich glaube nicht.
Perfekt. Lea, hast du überhaupt was mitbekommen? Lea hört
ja, sie kriegt gleich
Auf jeden Fall. Ja, fangen wir an. Sanne, wenn ich mich richtig erinnere, hast du das Buch als erstes auf Englisch gelesen?
Nö.
Ach,
ja, ich bekomme ein bisschen was leider und alles.
Gut. Okay. Dann hören wir erstmal zu, Lea, und wenn wir fertig sind, dann darfst du noch deinen Selbst zu Illuminae geben, würde ich sagen, ne?
Alles klar. Also, ja, ich habe es vorher auf Englisch gelesen, tatsächlich. Das Buch habe ich nun leider nicht mehr hier, aber ich fand, es ist sehr nah an dem Original, also vor allem natürlich die Gestaltung eigentlich genauso. Und, aber ich habe es auf Deutsch tatsächlich auch besser verstanden, allein wegen den ganzen technischen Begriffen und die halt auch spezifisch fürs Sci-Fi-Genre sind. Und ja, aber mir hat, glaube ich, das Deutsche auch dadurch auch besser gefallen als das Englische.
Okay, ja, ich war optimistisch, hatte mir das Buch auch auf Englisch geholt direkt. Allerdings, das war kurz vor Release des deutschen Buchs quasi. Das habe ich ja vorab schon im Mai gekriegt. Von daher, wenn ich das gewusst hätte, ja toll, hätte ich nicht doppelt zuschlagen müssen. Deshalb kann ich jetzt natürlich nicht sagen, wie es auf Englisch ist. Aber ich muss ja prinzipiell sagen, ich liebe Sci-Fi ja generell. Und so extrem technisch fand ich es jetzt eigentlich gar nicht. Von daher bin ich eigentlich... Ja, höre ich das zumindest immer wieder, dass da so viele extrem technische Sachen letztendlich sind, aber so kam es mir eigentlich gar nicht vor. Und das besonders Schöne an diesem Buch ist ja in meinen Augen gar nicht so das Sci-Fi-Element, sondern einfach die Person, Ezra und Kay, die sind einfach wundervoll, die sind super sympathisch und ich finde aber das ganze Setting des Buchs einfach so wahnsinnig genial. Was hat dir denn am besten am Buch gefallen?
Also mir hat eigentlich die Erzählweise am besten gefallen, gerade weil es ist ja einigermaßen chronologisch, allerdings hat man immer so Lücken zwischen. Und ich finde das irgendwie, also nicht nur die Zensuren innerhalb des Textes, sondern auch, dass du halt, wenn du die Interviews von Katie und Ezra liest und plötzlich bist du bei irgendwelchen Akten, die dann irgendwas anderes erzählen oder beziehungsweise eine Hintergrundgeschichte geben. Und ich finde, so hat das alles so ein bisschen, es ist nicht so linear gewesen. Das hat mir sehr, sehr gefallen. Ich finde, das trägt nochmal zu dieser Stimmung bei, dieses, ja, du weißt gar nicht, was als nächstes kommt. Das finde ich total interessant. Das hat mir, glaube ich, auch am besten gefallen.
Genau, also ich finde aber die komplette Aufmachung so genial. Wir waren ja am Freitag auf so einer Buchblogger-Veranstaltung in Bochum. Da wurde halt von einer anderen Bloggerin auch dieses Buch vorgestellt. Ich finde es aber so wahnsinnig genial, wie wir alle dieses Buch ins Herz geschlossen haben durch die ganze Gestaltung.
Du hast auch Illuminae vorgestellt.
Was war das, Nia?
Ich bin so dermaßen zeitverzögert. Das kommt bei euch alles immer erst richtig spät an.
Ja, was soll's. Wo wir dich gerade da hatten, was hat dir denn besonders gut am Buch gefallen? Warten wir mal ganz kurz, so 5 Minuten bis wir ankommen.
Mir hat am besten eigentlich am Buch gefallen, dass es wirklich so eine richtig spannende Reise war. Es war nämlich was total ungewöhnlich, keinen fortlaufenden Text zu lesen, sondern immer wieder was anderes. Und ich fand es total gut, wenn man die Seite umgeblättert hat und man dann wieder was Neues gesehen hat. Also jede Seite war irgendwie anders, alles hat sich unterschieden und dass es eben nicht so ein Prosatext war.
Genau. Jetzt noch mal kurze Frage an euch da draußen. Wir hatten das Buch schon gelesen und falls ihr es schon gelesen habt, was hat euch denn am besten gefallen? Einfach mal Hand hoch und einfach ansonsten in den Live-Chat-Artikeln. Das interessiert uns natürlich auch, wer überhaupt schon dieses Buch kennt und eventuell schon mal einen Blick reingeworfen hat. Ich muss ja selbst auch sagen, ich fand die ganze Thematik des Buches wahnsinnig genial, aber ich habe halt so ein paar Parallelen einfach vom Grundsetting zu einer meiner liebsten TV-Serien einfach gesehen, zu Battlestar Galactica. Es ist einfach auch so, dass so eine Kolonie quasi angegriffen wird und dann sich eine Flotte auf den Weg macht und probiert, von dieser Gefahr zu entkommen. Und ja, das ist halt auch die Grundidee von beiden Geschichten, auch wenn natürlich Battlestar natürlich Roboter quasi die Menschheit angreifen und hier ist es einfach ein anderer Konzern. Von daher, ja klar, so gewisse Ähnlichkeiten gibt es überall, aber ich habe mich da halt vor allen Dingen am Anfang so ein bisschen da hineinversetzt gefühlt und das fand ich einfach so eine schöne Hommage einfach an eine meiner liebsten Serien von damals und da habe ich mich da natürlich auch nochmal weiter drüber gefreut und das war einfach, ja, eine schöne Rückreise. Ich meine, die Serie ist jetzt auch seit 8 Jahren schon wieder vorbei. Ich werde alt, mein Gott. Und ja, nee, das fand ich aber einfach wahnsinnig genial und vor allem auch die ganze Gestaltung dann, was wir hier haben, was Lea ja auch gerade meinte, dass wir ja keinen zusammenhängenden Text haben, sondern ganz unterschiedliche Erzählmittel. Das war einfach so eine Transkription von einem Verhörprotokoll haben, Chatverläufe, dass wir da einfach aus Skizzen von den Raumschiffen haben. Also ich denke mir die ganze Zeit, Wahnsinn, das glaubt man gar nicht, was da für eine Liebe drin steckt letztendlich. Ne?
Das stimmt.
Und da freue ich mich aber schon drauf, die beiden Autoren gleich zu fragen, wie sie sich das überlegt haben. Ne? Ich meine, das ist ja eins, ein Buch zusammenzuschreiben und zum anderen natürlich, gut, wie funktioniert das dann, dass man da auch unterschiedliche Chats hinbekommt und alles. Da bin ich wahnsinnig gespannt, was sie uns gleich zu erzählen haben.
Ich bin auch total gespannt, wie sie da zusammengearbeitet haben. Das ist ja total verrückt. Also, coole Sache.
Ja, ich kann mir das auch gar nicht vorstellen, weil, also wenn ich mir immer selbst was ausdenke, wenn man irgendwie auf einen Konsens mit einem anderen Autor kommt, das finde ich halt schon sehr spannend.
Ja.
Ja.
So, soll's mein Tier. Ja, dann geht's weiter.
Ja, ich konnte den keinen machen, weil meine Eltern noch schlafen.
Oh. Wir haben gerade einen Gast dazu bekommen. Wonderful morning, Amie.
Hi!
Nice to meet you and thanks for your time, of course.
Oh, look, you all just speak English so well. I was watching the German and I was thinking, oh my gosh. I speak German. I can say, können Sie langsam sprechen?
Great.
No, I learned in school. I can say, wie komme ich am besten zum Bahnhof, bitte? Ich bin hungrig.
Well, it's nice to see that you can talk in German. Last Sunday, I have an interview with Ted Williams. He's an well, English-speaking author as well, and you just can say hi, hallo, wie geht's, and so it's much better with you.
Yeah.
But it's always nice to see English-speaking authors to try to speak German. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
I try. Look, I did German in school and in university, but I was not a very good German student.
Oh, no.
At university, I had other things to do besides my classes.
Well, we know that. From
Yeah,
experience.
we can feel you.
Yeah. Wow. And I think as soon as you learn to say one thing in another language, you have to learn to say können Sie langsam sprechen, because people hear the one thing and they think, oh, he's German. Hey, it's Jay.
Hey.
Hey, Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Hey, how you doing?
Good evening, Jay. Hi.
Good to see you all. It's morning for you guys, man.
Yeah.
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 And I'm at a convention and my internet connection is so bad.
Okay, it's probably still better than the internet connections in Australia, to tell you the truth. So.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
We'll see. We'll see who lasts longer.
Yeah.
We try our best, of course.
So
Well, where to start? Your wonderful book, Illuminae, is just out on our bookstores for about 1 week. It was published on Friday the 13th.
Okay, good luck.
Well, and the best day, of course. And well, it was at the Frankfurt Book Fair last week, and this was one of the most, the highlight books, of course.
Anticipated.
And I talked to so many book lovers, and they really want to buy this book in the local bookstores, but everywhere they go, it was sold out. So it's a very good sign, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully it's a very good beginning for this book. And yeah,
Already sold out everywhere.
Well,
All right, we'll get more.
Yeah.
yeah. We can't wait to see the other books of this trilogy, but we have to wait more than a year for the sequel. But
Yeah, we have to wait so long for the translation.
But the translators are so good. In a lot of countries, we don't know what the translators do because we never hear from them, and then one day there's just But the German translators email us lots of questions and say, like, should we use this word or this word? Like, they're really careful to come up with the best possible translation for you.
Yeah,
And Amie
I
actually
also
speaks
had-
a little bit of German, so she can tell that it's legit. I don't speak a word of German, unfortunately, but Amie does. So.
normally it's
I
very,
read-
very easy to talk German,
Yeah.
but
I also read the English one, the original one, and I think the German one's very true to the English version.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's always good to hear. You're always a little bit nervous. You don't know how good these translators actually are. But yeah, the German guys took an extraordinary amount of care. That was great.
we very often have very many problems with the translation because I already hear of people who read the English book and then reread the German version. They always say, "What's the?" No? It's always very, very bad, the translation. So I think it's always very good to. Yeah. I think it's very good.
Yeah, and I think
translators have the possibility to talk to the authors to clear some things. That's very important, I think, to tell the message of the book.
Yeah, I think so, especially because we made up a lot of the words. So when you're already translating from a language that is not your language and you have a word that is not a real word, you need to be able to email. I sort of wonder, like, what did the Chinese do? What did the Italians do? Did they just guess?
Yeah.
Maybe. But German
Maybe.
precision. The Germans.
Well, we just started to talk about the book. What was the most important thing for us? What we liked the most, and obviously it's the designs of the book. so many different parts, like yeah, the interviews, the chats. How did it work out for you to create all this different stuff?
In some ways harder than we expected, and in some ways easier than we expected, I think. And Jay has a lot of design experience, so that helped a lot.
Yeah, I used to work as a, it's called an art director. When I had a day job that wasn't writing books, I worked in advertising agencies and I studied design at university. So a lot of I bounced ideas back and forth a lot with a designer in-house, and we had a pretty good idea of how we thought things should look before we started. You know, we sent notes through at the top of. We're getting an echo. Is someone listening through speakers, or is that me? No. So what we'll do when we write down in the manuscript, we'll have. You know,
it works. It
works. Sorry, what was that?
Her internet connection is a bit bad, so her whatever she says it's coming.
Oh, I think this was me. The internet connection is so bad.
Right. Okay. No, that's all good. So yeah, when we
got a hard delay here.
You do, yeah. There's a. We'll put a note at the top in blue, which is a note from us to our designer. That'll let them know how we expect the page to look. But when we're in the process of actually designing the book, they send us through roughs, and I'll send back notes. And sometimes it was quicker for me just to do them myself, because it's easier to just show what you want rather than have to explain what you want. So it was actually really handy that I came from a design background and I can just do that myself on Photoshop. It helped a lot.
So did you already know which part of the story you want to tell in a particular style, or did you sometimes decided spontaneously which part you would like to tell in a chat or in a Wikipedia article?
Yeah, a lot of it was
not Wikipedia, it's Unipedia. The lawyer.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we get sued. We would decide together mostly because it depends on what information you want to give. If you want to give information very quickly, then maybe you have the captain tell everyone. But if you want to see how is a character feeling, then you might have, you know, a diary or a private conversation. So you have to think, what information do we want to give and how much emotion or no emotion do we want to give? And that helps you choose the format. Yeah,
but a lot of it was spontaneous. We were thinking about the situations that the characters were in and what was happening around them, and particularly towards the end of the book when Aiden is doing most of the narrating, it's we were trying to be as weird and as creative and inventive as we could possibly be, because the idea is that Aiden has been damaged, and so the way it's perceiving events is a factor in the way those events are presented on the page. So yeah, towards the end, it was kind of, there were no silly ideas. We just threw as many ideas at the wall as we could, and the ones that were cool, they stuck.
Yeah, I think the way of telling the story, especially the last pages with Aiden having the most part of the narrative is very, I think the atmosphere was very, it added to the experience very much. So the dark pages just felt very eerie, and I thought this was a bit creepier as well, because he was such a great, well, you could say villain, and I really appreciate the art of style in this book.
So you guys think it's a villain?
And the fighting scenes in space, where all the letters are like the flying paths of the airplanes. It was like I was in this book. I really felt it like watching a TV series. So it was so amazing, and never read something like this before. So I'm overwhelmed of this book. I That's
cool. We're actually finishing up the third one now. We've just been sent the latest round of design proofs for book number 3. And, you know, then this is not a huge spoiler, but the end of book number 3 is a massive space battle. So if you like the end of number 1, you'll like the end of number 3.
I'm really looking forward to reading it. Yes, it's great fun. Before you decided how to write the story, how did you two meet each other? Because it's not normal that 2 people write a book together.
No.
Yeah, and you're also doing a lot of collaboration, right? The delay, sorry.
So we met a few years ago because if you are not American but you earn money in America, and we do because our books are published in America, you are an alien, and you have to get. That's their word, not our word.
Yeah.
So you have to get, you know, they have social security numbers, and it's like a social security number, but for someone from overseas. And we, the paperwork is unbelievably difficult. So I used to be a lawyer and I couldn't understand the paperwork. I knew that Jay had already done the paperwork. And I think, Jay, you only had to try 3 times?
3 times.
To get
3 times, yeah. It's really hard, and the website is no help, and the people that you speak to on the phone are in a different time zone from the people who actually process the form, so they're not a lot of help either. So, yeah, it's a really frustrating process, and they don't make it easy on you. So, yeah, I had just been through that process, and Amie was just going through it, and so she had a buddy at work that knew I had unlocked this mystery. And so Amie offered to buy me brunch if I would tell her how to get it done, and that was where we just started hanging out.
Yeah, and then once we had done the paperwork, we just became friends.
Yeah, so we were both kind of newbie authors in Melbourne. Really, know anyone who was kind of our age. So yeah, we would just get together and talk every month or so about, you know, what was happening along our publishing journey, and you know, talking about our agents and our editors, and you know what it was like, and yeah, just became friends.
That's
so
nice.
Thank the IRS. We actually thank the IRS in the back of the book. if it wasn't for the Internal Revenue Service, this book would never exist, which is a scary thought.
Yeah.
And we're actually we're working on a new series as well, which starts here in the States, and in Australia it starts in 2019. So you know, there's probably going to be at least 6 books at the end of this process, and none of it would have happened if not for the Internal Revenue Service. So yeah, life is very strange.
So obviously you both came together and had lots of ideas, and how did you manage to get a compromise, or how did you put your creative thoughts into one product like Illuminae? I think it could be very complicated because sometimes you have another vision of the story than the other one. So how did you do it? How did it work out for you?
Yeah, how was the writing? I think it's really different and strange if you have 2 persons writing one book. Did you get like crash together and screamed at each other? No, you have to do it this way or this way.
No, we haven't had any horrible fights yet. The way we divide it up is based on characters, and so I wrote Ezra and Aiden, and Amie wrote Katie, and so I guess we're in respect to those characters, we're kind of the final arbiter. So Amie knows Katie a lot better than I do because she invented her. So, you know, if there ever came a disagreement where I was wanting to go one way and Amie wanted to go the other way, I think, you know, Amie probably gets the final word because Katie is her creation. But we never really reached that level of impasse. It was always a really collaborative process where we were bouncing ideas back and forth off each other all day. And even if we don't initially have the same idea, we both know that ultimately we want the book to be the best it can possibly be. we're both pretty open, and we had grown-up jobs which were, all about compromise. When I worked in advertising, you're kind of changing your ideas all the time just through the will of the client and the agency structure. So I don't think either of us are super precious about it, like kind of this is my thing and you're not allowed to touch it. It's a very collaborative back and forth kind of process.
Yeah, I think maybe some authors couldn't do it together. I think some authors would fight. But if you pick the right person and if you both really respect each other's writing, so you don't want to be in charge because you want to hear what the other person has to say. If you don't agree, it usually means both people are wrong, and you should, keep searching until you find something that you both think is right.
I think it's also very, very interesting process to get ideas from other. It also adds to creativity, I think, if you get input from each other.
Yeah, two heads are definitely better than one, particularly when you get stuck. When you've got two brains working on a problem, it's going to be exponentially better.
Yeah.
And again, like Amie said, it's a matter of picking the right person. It's a lot like being married, I guess. It's not like being in a relationship. You kind of have to. Not that we're both married, but we're married to different people. But yeah, you have to approach the relationship with an understanding and a respect. It's the same level of respect that you show your spouse. You're both. On the one hand, you're building a book together. When you're married, you're building a life together. But it's the same kind of rationale. It's the same level of consideration and understanding.
Yeah, and that you don't want one person to be in charge.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Amie, you've done a lot of collaborations right now with other authors. How was it different to write with Jay? It's kind of a personal question.
Oh yeah, no, he's the worst. He's really terrible.
Yeah, I'm the worst.
Yeah. No, I think it's really not that different. It's if you choose carefully, then you choose somebody whose personality goes really well with yours. And I think Jay actually met Meg, who I write my other series with. And I was like, ooh, like, how will it go? Will they like each other? And so I thought, I'll be them. So if they don't like each other, I can be in the middle. And then things went wrong and I wasn't there. And I got this text message saying that they were going out. And I was thinking like, oh my God, what if they fight? And then I start getting text messages at like 3 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning being like, we're doing karaoke, we're really drunk. Okay, so they were fine. They like each other fine.
Yeah, no, Meg and I are actually very similar people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Meg in terms of our personality, I think we're very, very similar. So Amy's good at spotting people that she can get along with, I think. But yeah, it was weird. When Meg and I met for the first time, particularly because Amie was there. It's probably good that Amie wasn't there in retrospect.
Yeah.
But it took us. We were kind of circling each other around for 3 or 4 minutes, and we realized that we had so much in common, and personality-wise, we were pretty good at getting on. So we ended up going until 4 o'clock in the morning. Singing karaoke with Zara and Leider, Cordova, and Meg had a business meeting the next day, but she showed up hungover. But
That's great.
we had fun. It was good.
That's an important thing, of course. We have got several questions from our audience. Thanks to you guys out there. First of all, do you have a writing procedure every day? How do you write?
Together, you mean, or just in general?
Yeah, on the one hand side together, and on the other hand side, each of you alone at home, for example. Yes.
Okay. Well, when we write together, what we'll tend to do is plot out a block of the book, so with Illuminae, we'll do about 100 pages in advance. And we've found that if we do any more than that, we tend to trip over our own feet and think of cooler things as we're writing. So plotting too far in advance has turned out to be not as time efficient. So we generally plot about 100 pages, and then we'll divide up those 100 pages into scenes, decide which character would be the best character to be the narrator in that scene. So it could be Katie or Ezra or Aiden or a secondary character. And then that's how we divide up the workload. So Amie will be in charge of character X and character Y and character Z. I'll be in charge of character A, B, and C. And depending on who's supposed to be the narrator in that scene, we'll go away and write those individual pieces and then kind of send a Word document back and forth via email as we add our own individual pieces. And it's kind of like building a castle out of Lego bricks. You're just adding one brick at a time, and by the end of it, you have a book. So, but we're constantly kind of collaborating along the way. And we'll write each other notes, and we'll talk each other, via GChat. We probably talk to each other more than we talk to our respective spouses someday. Particularly when we're drafting, we're kind of bouncing ideas back and forth all the time. So it's a really collaborative, kind of interactive process. But it's also a lot of fun. I mean, that's the biggest difference between writing by yourself and writing with another person. Like having someone there to share ideas with and to bounce ideas off and to be inspired by is, it's an enormous amount of fun if you find the right person.
Yeah. And I think one big difference we have, which is actually quite good, is I like to write in the morning and Jay likes to write late at night. So we can kind of write 24 hours a day sometimes. Like I like my best writing happens before my lunch. So I get up, no email, no anything, just write. And then I send it to him in the afternoon and he's just waking up. So wake up and starts writing and he says it back at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I wake up. So
Perfect.
all day, all night.
It's perfectly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Another question, this time from Jennifer, and she wants to know that she just read that you are working on another series together. Is it true? And do you have any details to tell us?
Yes, it's true. We are nearly finished writing the first draft of book 1.
Wow.
So it's also set in space, and it's about a group of students from a military academy in space who are all, no one wants them on their team. Oh. And so they all end up on a team together, and then that team has to save the universe. So it's a little bit like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, yay!
It's kind of like the Breakfast Club meets Guardians of the Galaxy at Starfleet Academy.
Like, this is not the team that you would choose. It's just the team you got.
Yeah, the team that happened to be in the room at the time.
That sounds
so
very exciting.
We've almost finished the first book, writing the first book. That should be done by the middle of November, I think, and that will be released in March of 2019.
Yeah,
awesome.
In English, you probably have to wait longer. But
sorry.
Yeah, but it's lots of action and it's funny.
Yeah.
So
at least I hope it's supposed to be funny. And if you think Illuminae is funny, you'll think this is funny.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably a little more.
You guys
it's kind of, I hesitate to use the word. It's a little bigger in scope. It's kind of more Star Wars, Star Trek in terms of the level of scale. Whereas Illuminae, it kind of all happens in the one solar system. It's kind of a small group of people and a small. I mean, as far as any part of space is small, space is huge, but comparatively, it's a smaller universal look, I guess.
So
whereas this new book is kind of, it's the entire universe.
So you both are obviously big science fiction fans.
Yeah, I think you're obsessed with space, right?
Space is amazing.
Yeah.
especially Amie.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's exciting to look at places that we have never been and imagine what they will be. And, you know, in space, you can tell any story. And you could tell the same story on Earth, but whenever we hear a story on Earth, we have judgments before we begin, and we compare it to our own experience. But stories in space, you just judge what you see because it's not your life. Does that make any sense? It's a way to look at questions without all the baggage that we have here.
That's an approach I didn't think of yet. So you already mentioned Star Wars, Guardians of Galaxy, and Star Trek. So I wonder, what are your favorite science fiction books, TV shows, films, and what influenced you the most writing Illuminae?
Oh, wow. I think Battlestar Galactica.
Yes, I thought so.
In terms of my favorite science fiction, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would be up there.
Oh yeah,
that's an amazing series of books.
Yeah,
and I think we've kind of we've borrowed a little from Hitchhikers in the new series as well in terms of the tone. It's kind of that level of humor, hopefully anyway. Not comparing ourselves to Douglas Adams, but that's what we're aiming for, I guess. So Hitchhiker's Guide is great. I prefer Star Trek to Star Wars. There was, in terms of favorite movies, there was I think one of the best science fiction movies I've seen in recent memory was a film called Edge of Tomorrow, which was actually a Tom Cruise movie. And I'm not a big fan of Tom Cruise, but this was based on a manga called, I can't remember what it's called.
Live, Die, Repeat.
Live, Die, Repeat, yeah. I was thinking Kill, Die, Repeat, but that's no. That's an incredible science fiction story. Really tight, really self-contained, super action, but there's a really cool idea at the heart of it. It's kind of a cross between Groundhog Day and Starship Troopers. So yeah, it's amazing. And strangely enough, the director of that film is, am I allowed to say this, Amy?
Yeah.
Okay. He is attached to the adaptation of Amy and Meg's new book, Unearthed, which comes out. It comes out in November in Australia, but it comes out in the States in January. So, you know, that's pretty amazing for me because he's directed this incredible science fiction movie, and one of my best friends could be writing the book of the next movie he makes. So yeah, that's amazing.
Wow, great, awesome.
Yeah,
I think as well, one of my favorite, it's not really science fiction, but one of my favorite movies is Apollo 13, which is an old movie now, but it's the story of, you know, when they were going to the moon and something broke, and it's the story of the rescue and how do they get them back. And I love stories like that. I think that influences a lot of my writing, the desperate situation and the having to improvise. So I think that's a lot of what I write.
You're a big fan of The Martian as well.
Yeah, I loved the book The Martian. I was doing some work that I didn't want to do, and I said, okay, if I do the work, I can read one chapter. And all I remember is I did the book, and then I started to read, and then it was dark. And I was hungry, and I guess I was reading for like 6 or 7 hours. I don't know. I love that book.
Yeah, that's the magic spell of just one more chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we try to do with Illuminae, is make it really hard to know where to start.
And I couldn't stop reading. I couldn't stop.
Excellent.
It worked then. Amazing.
That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of films, one question from Mike in the chat is that she read that Illuminae is going to be a film someday. And how do you feel about this? And how do you expect the thing that was always in your head come to screen? Are you a bit anxious or excited?
Both.
Both.
I think you always, with a movie, you hope will be good, but a movie is different to a book. So you know some things will change, and that's okay. But a movie that does exactly the same as the book actually usually doesn't work as well. So I think we think some things will change, and that's okay. But it'd be very exciting to see. Sometimes when I go to see a movie, with my husband, I watch all the credits come up and I think, oh my gosh, what if that happens to me one day? That would be so cool. So I hope one day.
But yeah, you have to trust the team that you signed the rights to the film over. And Plan B Entertainment, who are the guys that optioned Illuminae, they've done some incredible movies. And kind of offbeat, not traditional Hollywood movies either in some cases. So, yeah, the crew there are amazing, and we trust them to do the best they can do, and everything else is a little bit out of our hands. So, it's not something you can spend an enormous amount of time worrying about because you can't really change it. So, you just trust the team and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm. Okay, come back to your book at first. In Illuminae, there are many censored passages, black-marked passages. Why do you decide, or did you decide to do that? Because Jay just have a very rude language in Nevernight, for example. So
And I love that in Nevernight. I missed it in Illuminae.
All the swearing is still there. It's just covered up.
Yeah, there's even ruder language in Illuminae. You just can't see it.
You can't see it.
Because it was to think which word did the authors really mean. So it was like a quiz for
sometimes.
That's the game. It's like a video game. You got to guess what the swear word was under the black bar. Yeah. Nevernight is an adult book, and Illuminae is a young adult book. So tonally they're not the same. They're not talking to the same audience potentially. Anyway, we kind of have to be mindful that 11 and 12-year-olds can read Illuminae. If you're an 11 and 12-year-old reading Nevernight, that's okay, but it's probably not written for you, not written with you in mind. So it was there's a joke. Oh, it's not a joke. We're kind of pointing fun. We're pointing out the idea at the start of the book. I think it's on the first page of Illuminae, where we say, we've redacted the swearing from this book per your instructions. Sure, it kicks off with the death of 10,000 people, but heaven forbid there be swearing in it. That was kind of us pointing the finger at the idea that in a lot of our entertainment, whether it be television or books or movies or whatever, ultra-violence is perfectly acceptable. Like, it's totally fine. The Hunger Games is a book about a bunch of teenagers being dropped into a murder pit and killing each other. And that's totally fine. That movie gets a PG rating. But, if you swear in a book or a movie or a television show, or you show, at least over here, we've been told that European people are a little more open-minded about this stuff. But in America and Australia and the UK, the idea of sex or showing human body parts without clothes on them, it's totally taboo. And the idea of teenagers talking the way teenagers do every day is also totally taboo. So that was us kind of trying to point the finger at that idea, the notion that swearing is not okay, but the idea of a 8-year-old girl dragging around a human heart behind her like a teddy bear is perfectly acceptable, which actually happens in the book. So yeah, it was us pointing the finger at that notion, the idea that some things are okay and some aren't.
I don't think, Jay, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have had one single complaint that the book is too violent.
No.
Even though the book is quite violent. But if we had swearing in there, we would get so many complaints about it. So there's a terrible double standard, and we sort of wanted to be a little bit sarcastic about that.
It would have been a total different book if you didn't censor it.
Right.
Yeah. And also it's really funny watching you all try and guess.
Yeah,
That's right.
I love that. The guessing game, it was amazing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Go.
Just another question from the audience. Julia, aka Miss Foxy Reed, just asked that there are so many Easter eggs hidden in Illuminae. Do you have any hints where we can find more?
We don't know which ones you've found already.
Yeah. So there's a lot of author name in there. A lot of our friends are in the book. And there are a lot of quotes as well, but it depends if you know the English books and movies that they come from. I think there's a medical file in there, and if you look at the medical file closely, you'll find the name of a friend of ours who you will know as well.
Yep. There's a movie poster in there. If you look through the credits of the movie.
Mary Lou on it, for example.
Yeah, Mary Lou, who's one of our dearest friends.
You two are on the list of dead
advocate
people,
of the book.
for example.
Right.
Yeah, we're on the list.
We died. Yeah. We killed ourselves.
So very funny.
Well, future versions of ourselves, I guess.
Yeah.
But we killed George R. R. Martin. George R. R. Martin was one of the passengers on the Copernicus. So we killed him because we figured that he deserved some payback after killing all our favorite characters.
Nice.
What else? What else is in there? I'm trying to think now.
There are quotes from Star Trek and The Princess Bride and Firefly. You have to find them. We can't tell you where they are.
Yeah.
But you do not have a number how many there are hidden.
Oh no, a lot.
Yeah.
The whole book is.
And there are some that the other I put in that Amie might not even know about, or Amie put in that I might not even recognize. Apparently, Amie put in some Hamilton references in book 3. But I haven't seen or heard Hamilton, so I don't actually know these references either.
Yeah. So we sometimes we get surprised as well.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of names, what I found interesting at the beginning of the book when we get to know the different ships in Illuminae, like the Alexander, the Lincoln, Churchill. I think I find it interesting that you named the ships after leading figures like Kenyatta or Zhang.
Yeah.
Is there a reason behind it, or did you just think, oh, that just sounds cool?
No, there's a reason behind it. And the reason is that everybody in this story thinks that they are the hero. That, Baytek doesn't go to work thinking, oh, we're evil. They just think, well, that mining colony is illegal and it's okay to take it because it's illegal. And so if they were evil, they would name their ships after evil people. But they think that they're heroes. So they name their ships after heroes. They name their ships after famous leaders because they think they're the good guys.
It's interesting.
They're not.
It's a very interesting concept. So
Yeah. So,
great.
and the science vessels are all named after famous scientists through history. So there's the Copernicus and the Hypatia, and the Brahe. They're all famous space-related scientists, astrophysicists, and astrologers and whatnot. And Alexander is a military ship, and so that was named after Alexander the Great, obviously. Interestingly enough, the initial name for the Alexander was the Hadrian, who was one of my favorite Roman emperors. But we had 2 H names. We had Hypatia and we had the Hadrian, and we thought people might get confused, so we changed the Hadrian to the Alexander, who was another one of my favorite generals, but he's not around now.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't think about that. I thought just, well, those names are just familiar to me, like that they're presidents or something political, and that's very great.
Yeah, so all of Baytek's ships are named after famous Earth leaders, political leaders. Because they think they're the hero in their own story. That's the way they think.
Yeah, and some of those leaders are better people than others, but it has been 500 years. So now they think all of those people were good people.
Obviously, like,
history will change
right
it.
now. Awesome. Yeah.
Well, another question from the audience. Golden Letters is just asking if you are working simultaneous on more than one book at the same time, or do you just concentrate on one book and then the next one?
It tends to be simultaneous. It depends entirely on where our deadlines are falling. But at the moment, for example, we have a deadline on our new series, which is in the middle of November. And I also have a deadline for one of my solo series, which is also the middle of November. They're kind of getting handed in virtually the same week. And that's the first time I've been writing 2 books simultaneously. But what we'll try and do is block out large chunks of time. Even if you're working on 2 books at the same time, you'll set aside, 2 or 3 weeks to solely work on one book, and that way you can keep yourself in the headspace that's necessary. If you're flipping back and forth between projects on a day-to-day basis, that would get pretty hard work, I would think.
Yeah. I have lots of tricks for that. Like for every book, I have different music, and so I only play that music when I write that book. And so when I wake up and it's time to write this book today, I put on this music, and my little brain knows to go to that book. Because I'm also writing lots at the same time, so you need special tricks.
So
yeah, I think at one point this year we were both working on 3 books simultaneously at one point this year. So
that's a challenge.
Yeah. And Amie, did you get soundtracks?
Sorry?
Do you share them on Spotify? Do you share your writing soundtracks?
If you delay it. It's okay. If you look in the back of Illuminae in the acknowledgements, you'll see lots of names, and they are all musicians. So that's where we thank them for the music that we use.
Okay, Jay, we just know that you are a passionate D&D player. Does it influence you in writing? Because I know many German authors, for example, have got a D&D past, and that's always influencing them in the world building. And does it influence you in writing? And Amie, do you share this passion, or do you have any other hobbies that influences you in writing?
I mean, it does influence me in the sense that I've been making worlds up since I was probably 12 years old. I always had the most fun being the dungeon master in D&D because I got to tell the story. I got to write the setting in the background and get to play all the NPCs and to kind of weave the overarching plot. So that was always the most fun for me. And I guess in a very real sense, that did teach me from a very early age how to write those kinds of stories and how to build those kinds of worlds. But I was really heavily influenced by the books that I was reading at the time as well. So yeah, I definitely think it was a combination of it. It was probably my first storytelling experiences, actually. I mean, sitting around playing D&D, you're playing a board game, but you're also telling a story. And as I got older and the people that I was playing with got older as well, we found that the story became more important. Initially, when you're 12 years old, you're all about, getting a +5 magic sword and rolling 20s. That's the most important thing about the game. But as you get older, it becomes, an exercise in kind of group storytelling. So yeah, it has been a huge influence on me, I think. It's also let me meet some amazing people, like the work colleague of Amie who gave her my contact details. He was a guy that I met through gaming. So if I wasn't a gamer, I would never have met Nick, and therefore I would never have met Amie, and therefore this book series would never have existed. So yeah, it's been a huge influence on my life.
Yeah, for real. And the way that I made friends with Nick was we were at work and he was talking about what he was doing on the weekend, but I think he didn't want to sound like a nerd. So he was being really vague. And I didn't know him yet. And when the conversation was over, I went up to him and I said, "You're gaming on the weekend?" And he was like, you know. So then we went after that. So I think, yeah, I mean, I grew up with a lot of games like that as well, and I think it teaches you, it prepares you to co-author, because you have to share the story with everyone, and so I think it teaches you very early, and I think it also teaches you how to think about stories that might come out of unexpected events, because if you're playing D&D or games like that and you don't know what's going to happen next, you have to be very fast.
Yeah.
So it teaches you, you know, if I say something, Jay can immediately think, oh, well, and then what about this? And I can say, what about this? So it makes you very nimble.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I agree with that totally. It helps you learn to be a spontaneous storyteller. And you'll find that, you know, when you're sitting around with a group of friends gaming, they will do something that surprises you that you didn't expect, and that will derail the plot and it will go somewhere totally different. But your characters can also do that as well, particularly in a series where you've been writing for quite a long time. They almost come up with ideas by themselves. They almost become their own people. And sometimes they'll do something that totally surprises you and might throw the plans you had for the plot off track, but that can lead to somewhere else that's even better than you first imagined.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, we're both huge nerds. We're huge nerds.
Yeah.
We are
Do
the
you
nerds.
have any special fan experience in the past? For example, anything special, anything very weird, for example?
This hangout.
Oh yeah. People get tattoos. That's really cool. I love seeing the tattoos that people get. Really big ones. I think my weirdest fan experience so far wrote us an email about book 2. And don't worry, no spoilers. But there's one character in book 2 who's drinking energy drinks, like Red Bull from the future, yeah? And she's drinking a lot of it because it's an emergency and she has to stay awake. And this guy writes us this email. And this is a book that has death and drugs and sex and swearing. And he writes an email and says, I think you're setting a very bad example for teenagers with the energy drink. I think they might learn the wrong
What is that?
What?
And I'm like, well, they might learn to murder people as well, but we hope not. So that was weird.
That was really weird. That was a weird letter to write. That character's habits were actually based on mine. I was drinking a lot of energy drinks at the time.
Yeah.
I've subsequently quit.
Yeah.
So maybe
But that character is a girl, but it's Jay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's pretty much me.
Right. Yeah. You've obviously created different characters in Illuminae. Amie, you wrote Katie, and Jay, you wrote Aiden and Ezra. But all of the characters you already wrote, have you a favorite character, or do you love all the same?
That's hard.
That is a hard question. It's kind of like asking you which one of your children you like the best.
Oh no.
Like, even if you know you shouldn't say.
Yeah.
I think mostly I like the person I'm writing at the moment. So in book 1 it's Katie, in book 2 it's Hannah, in book 3 it's Asha. And whoever I'm writing, that's my girl. That's the person I think about the most. But Jay, I think yours is Aiden, yeah?
It's probably Aiden, because writing Aiden opened up a couple of opportunities. Like, it let us do some really strange and inventive stuff with the typography and the design of the book. The idea that this computer's injury and its madness would shape the physical product of the book was kind of the idea that really broke the concept for us in our heads. It was that idea was the idea that made the book come alive for us in our heads, I think. And Aidan is the genesis of that idea. So I think the way writing that character kind of freed us up creatively was pretty amazing. But also Aidan is my attempt to explore and answer some of the big questions that I have about the universe and about human consciousness and what our place is in this thing called life. So I've kind of used that character as a means to explore those questions. But I tend to do that with a lot of the characters that I write as well. The Mia from Nevernight is an exploration of the idea of anger and revenge, you know, what you would be willing to give up in order to avenge yourself against the people that have wronged you. So I try and do that with all the characters that I write, the main characters. But yeah, Aidan's a big one. There's a lot of me in the way that Aidan thinks and sees the world. I'm not sure that's a great ad for me, given the horrible things that Aidan does over the course of this series. But yeah, it's me trying to answer some of those questions that I have.
It's true. I mean, Katie sounds a lot like the inside of my head, but everyone's always surprised because they always think I'm so nice, and I couldn't think those things. So.
You are nice. They don't think you're nice. You're nice.
But I also think those things.
Yeah. You're just smart enough to keep it to yourself, whereas I'm not.
Amie, you just grew up in Ireland. Partly, and Jay, you just posted an Instagram image this morning that you have been in Germany 8 years ago. Do you have any plans to come back perhaps next year, or do you do a Europe tour, for example, because you have so many fans in Europe and Germany, and we really like to see you guys here at perhaps next book fair in Frankfurt, for example. Do you have any contact to the German publishers or Europe publishers to do a Europe tour?
We're in contact with our publishers, yeah, and we'd love to go over there for sure, but it's just a question of logistics and timing and money. It's expensive to get tours over there. I think, you know, at one point we will definitely both be over there. I think I'm going to be in Europe, I think in June next year, and I'm going to be there again the year after that. But yeah, it's not really up to us. It's up to our publishers. If they want us there and they think enough people will come out to see us, then they'll get us over. Yeah, but we would love to be there. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've been to Germany as well. I loved it. It was wonderful.
That's great to hear.
You're always welcome.
I would like to go outside this. I would like to see. I've seen Cologne and Berlin and Frankfurt, but I would like to go smaller places as well.
Yeah, I've only been to, where have I been? Frankfurt, Berlin, and Munich, I think, are the only cities that I've seen. And that was, like I say, that was like 8 years ago. I was over there on holiday with my wife. So yeah, it'd be great to come back.
You could literally always come to Cologne and visit us.
Are you guys all in Cologne?
Yeah, we live near Cologne. Yeah.
I'm moving to Frankfurt next week.
Okay.
Philip,
Next week. Wow. Yeah. Why would you go to Frankfurt, Philip? What's there?
New job. Yeah.
Amazing.
I would
stay in
Cologne
Cologne.
Cathedral, but yeah. I had any choice, so yeah. Okay, I think 1 or 2 last questions for today.
And I have a question too.
Okay,
sure.
Yeah, just start.
The delay is sucking up. Yeah, my question is, you wrote a lot of psychological documents. How was it for you to do the research? Do you have any experience with working with psychologists or something?
No, we have a couple of doctor friends. So whatever we're writing, whether it be medical reports or you know, details about astrophysics and whatnot, we will tend to rely upon experts because, you know, we're authors, we can't know everything. We can do research, but we're never going to know as much about space as a person who studies space every day. So yeah, when it comes to medical stuff, we both have a few doctor friends. I think we got a medical report format from a buddy of mine, and we asked a buddy of Amie's a lot of details about the structure of the virus and the way it might affect the human brain. So it was important for us, even though we're writing science fiction, that there be a scientific basis for what we were doing. So it's conceivable that a virus could do to people what the virus on the Alexander does to people. So that's a scary thought, I guess. But yeah, we have an astrophysicist friend that we consult about, the way gravity works, the way fire would work in space, the way how long you could live outside your spacesuit before you suffocated, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we always rely upon experts. And one of the really cool things was we went to NASA last year, the Jet Propulsion Labs in LA, and there was a group of rocket scientists at JPL who read Illuminae, and they couldn't actually find any mistakes in terms of our science or our physics. So that was pretty cool.
That's so cool.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, it's always great to have these practical connections.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you still have the time to read in your free time, I would like to say? And do you read, for example, the books of each other? Like Amie, never.
Yeah. Yeah. I just finished reading book 2 of Nevernight, and everyone's really angry at him because of how book 2 ends. And I am also really angry. But I think that I will know before everyone else what happens in book 3. I think I have a chance.
And do you
and I have read his book that comes out next year, Lifelike, which I've read as well, and he's writing book 2 now. And I read the whole of Lifelike in one go on a plane. I just sat there, and then I wrote him this email in all capital letters, and as soon as I landed, I hit send. So yeah, we love to read.
Amie,
so you're very emotional about Jay's book.
Amie's one of my beta readers, so she's been reading my stuff for years and years. And she writes, yeah, she's an incredibly insightful critic. And I don't mean critic in a bad way. I mean, like, she's excellent at spotting problems and weak spots. So yeah, I trust her opinion an extraordinary amount.
do you perhaps have any last words to the German audience, for example, or all the subscribers afterwards?
Oh my gosh, just thank you. Vielen Dank for reading. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's kind of strange to think of my book being published in a language that I don't understand and appearing in stores in cities that I've never set foot in. But yeah, it's an amazing experience, and we're really grateful to everyone involved, all of our readers who allow us to do this for a living. And yeah, we really hope to get over there one day soon and say hello to you all in person. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
It would, but in the meantime, come say hi on Twitter and on Instagram, because we try very hard to answer as much as we can.
Yeah, you're really passionate about your fans, right?
It's very great.
We try really hard to answer everyone because we really appreciate, people put a lot of time and effort into reading the book, and we want to show them that we really value that.
Oh, that's so lovely.
And it's because of you guys that we get to do this for a living. Like, we couldn't do this without you. That's not us being cheesy or hyperbolic. Like, that's the reality. We couldn't do what we do without our readers. So we're incredibly grateful to all you guys.
We're also grateful for you giving us such great books.
Yeah, your stories.
We're glad you like it.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming here.
Joining. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great.
It was great to meet you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Even if the delay sucks and
It's
the
like
internet could
talking like you're living in the moon with this delay.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay.
Ja.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. I wish So we wir können ja jetzt auf Deutsch weiterreden.
Genau.
Ich bin total im Englisch-Rhythmus drin. Mann, war das gerade cool, dass die beiden dabei waren. Ich bin total begeistert.
Genau, wir müssen auch auslosen.
An dieser Stelle möchten wir euch noch, ich will euch auch noch eben auf was aufmerksam machen. Und zwar veranstaltet der DTV-Verlag ja auch noch ein Gewinnspiel zu Illuminae. Ich weiß nicht, ob ihr das alles schon gesehen habt. Ich muss mal kurz sehen, wie ich das finde für euch. Auf www.illuminae.de könnt ihr einen Escape Room Besuch gewinnen, Band 1 und auch einen Gutschein für Band 2 schon. Ihr müsst dafür 5 Rätsel lösen auf der Website und vorbeischauen, weil das ist so cool gemacht. Man ist quasi im Raumschiff drin und kann sich im Raumschiff so bewegen. Also ihr solltet auf jeden Fall da mal vorbeischauen, selbst wenn ihr nicht beim Gewinnspiel mitmachen wollt.
Genau, aber Lea verlinkt das mit Sicherheit auch nochmal unten in der Infobox, falls ihr es gerade nicht richtig mitbekommen habt. Aber ich denke, ich werde auch noch mitmachen. Ich meine, Escape Room habe ich noch nie gemacht. Mega geil.
Ja, noch was für dich, Philipp. Kann ich mir gut vorstellen.
Okay, und das andere Thema, wir haben noch ausgelost, wir haben ein Gewinnspiel veranstaltet. Und erstmal vielen Dank an alle da draußen, die mit fleißig kommentiert haben und zugeschaut haben. Und das zu so einer frühen Uhrzeit. Auf jeden Fall herzlichen Glückwunsch an Maike. Du hast die deutsche Ausgabe von Illuminae gewonnen. Und ja, die noch gerne zukommt per Mail. Ne, ich schicke dir die Mailadresse in den Chat. Na, einfach da mal kurz hinschreiben. Ups, nicht vertippen. Und ja, dann vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen.
Ja.
Wir wissen noch nicht genau, wann wir jetzt konkret die nächste Show machen. Voraussichtlich Mitte, Ende November, kommt ein bisschen drauf an, wann ich jetzt Internet wieder habe.
Genau, also es liegt an mehreren Sachen. Es liegt nicht nur am Philipp, es liegt auch daran, dass wir momentan noch in Gesprächen sind mit einer Autorin. Und da das auch wieder international wird, wir wollen da nicht zu viel verraten, aber wir sind da gerade noch in den Verhandlungen und wir wollen euch natürlich nur die Fakten nennen und nicht sagen, vielleicht dann. Und wenn wir das genaue Datum wissen, dann geben wir euch auf jeden Fall auf unseren Social-Media-Kanälen Bescheid. Und ansonsten freue ich mich schon auf die Lesezeit. Also wir versuchen das so schnell wie möglich jetzt zu klären, damit ihr möglichst schnell Bescheid wisst und dann auch mitlesen könnt.
Genau.
Jo.
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 Genau, dann vielen, vielen Dank wieder an euch beide, an Lea und an Sanne und natürlich an das.
Ja, danke.
Danke auch
Philipp,
dir,
dass du
Philipp.
das ein bisschen übernommen hast beim Internet.
Und ich hoffe, dass wir das nächste Mal in HD senden können und nicht wie.
Ja, beim nächsten Mal wird es dann wieder besser, wenn ich dann nicht in einem Hotelzimmer auf einer Convention bin, sondern zu Hause.
Und ich nicht in Hirn. Naja, egal. Vielen, vielen Dank. Lea, dir eine schöne Con und allen anderen
danke. Ich
natürlich auch.
Gelände.
Noch einen schönen Sonntag. Ich werde mich jetzt an die restlichen Regale begeben und abbauen. Yeah,
ich werde jetzt erstmal frühstücken.
Auch gut. Auf jeden Fall vielen, vielen Dank. Und bis zum nächsten Mal.
Danke, dass ihr dabei wart. Ich hoffe, es hat euch Spaß gemacht. Und Dank an Stefanie Broller und an den DTV-Verlag, dass ihr das überhaupt möglich gemacht habt, dass wir Jay und Amie dabei haben durften.
Ja, danke. Das ist eine einzigartige Möglichkeit. Und es hat auch super viel Spaß gemacht. Und ich finde, die Autoren hatten, glaube ich, auch sehr viel Spaß.
Genau, alles klar.
Gut.
Ja.
Wir sehen uns.
Ja, dann. Wir sehen uns. Tschüss.